In the late 2000s, the Chinese artist Ai Wei Wei was commissioned to produce one of the largest and most significant art installations ever revealed at the Tate Modern in London. The artwork consisted of 100 million individually sculpted porcelain sunflower seeds, every single one carefully crafted and produced by a team of 1,600 workers in the small town of Jingdezhen, the porcelain capital of China, and historically well known for its production of imperial porcelain dating back over 1,000 years. For me, this work of art is the ultimate celebration of human craftsmanship and artistic process, something I deeply love exploring and discussing in my videos. Collectively, the seeds are an undefinable sea of grey, with no one seed being any more special than the other. Yet at the same time, each seed is special and a completely unique artistic work in itself, embedded with the intimate hand-painted touch of many individual artists and craftspeople. And despite the seeds being simple in form and appearance, there are countless layers of meaning and interpretation, just as there are layers of seeds covering the 10cm deep, 1,000 square meter floor during its Tate Modern installation in 2010. And whilst the interpretation of this work is a very important part of the story, the process of manufacturing these seeds is often lost. Ai himself has even talked about his deep love for process and believes that slowing down and assembling by hand is important in today's fast-paced world, an idea that is very much present in many of his other works. So in this video, I want to take a brief look at why the seeds were created, and then talk about the 2.5-year period it took to create the seeds, the processes, the techniques, and the incredible story of artistry and craftsmanship that stands behind this poignant and thought-provoking work of art. Ai Wei Wei is both a celebrated and controversial figure in China. He's quite well known for designing Beijing's bird nest stadium for the 2008 Olympic Games, but he's also a very vocal critic of the Chinese government. His family was exiled during Mao's regime, giving Ai a hard and oppressive upbringing in Xinjiang, a poor district in China. Growing up in poverty, Ai talks about how sunflower seeds were one of the few luxuries available and a common street snack that was carried around and shared with friends. He recalls the sharing of sunflower seeds as a gesture of human compassion, providing a space for pleasure, friendship, and kindness during a time of extreme poverty, repression, and uncertainty. One of the core personal relationships Ai has with sunflower seeds. Having lived in very harsh conditions with very little education, he ended up gravitating towards art and eventually started to discuss individualism and freedom of expression within his artwork, which was, of course, the polar opposite to the views of the Chinese government at the time, and still is very much today. Ai's personal life and challenging relationship with China, of course, plays an important role in the development of sunflower seeds. Ai has said that it's a responsibility to voice his views and distaste towards those impositions of power, and sunflower seeds is ultimately an expression of that. However, there are many other, much broader and certainly less personal interpretations and intentions associated with the installation. Almost too many ideas, in fact, too many for this video. But to provide a little bit of context, the central idea around the seeds is the connection to the Cultural Revolution in China. Being born in 1957, I was young but certainly able to remember this period, lasting from 1966 to 1976, with images and propaganda posters of Mao Zedong, who was depicted alongside sunflowers, symbolizing the leader as the sun and the undefinable masses of people as sunflowers turning towards him. Even this idea alone can be talked about and interpreted in many different ways. There's so much more to say on just this one perspective, and there are many more ideas relating to individuality and collectivism, the commonality of the sunflower seeds in modern China, the deeper history of seeds in agriculture during Mao's regime, and more contemporary ideas of mass consumerism and factory workers, all of which can be linked and discussed in the context of this artwork. The location of manufacturing and all the local people that were employed are really at the heart of this work's significance. Just as the seeds have the potential to grow tall and strong, the Sunflower Seeds project was just as much of a charity project as an art piece. As a somewhat impoverished area of China, many of the locals were more than happy to produce the seeds and were paid more than the standard living wage. The seeds were quite tedious but easy to create, with many people in the community even taking some of the materials home with them so that they could manage their homes, look after the kids and cook whilst working on painting the seeds. And all of this was very intentional by Ai. He wanted to support and help the local community, so bringing them months and years of work provided quite a significant boost to the local economy. Another important reason that Ai manufactured the seeds in China was to critique and break down the negatively charged Made in China stamp, something that we're all very familiar with and unfortunately has become a label often associated with images of mass-produced, inexpensive goods. Handcrafting the seeds in the small town of Jingdezhen with local artists and experts in porcelain was a very intentional and direct challenge to the robotic, machine-produced products we associate with the Made in China label. Jingdezhen was chosen specifically because the kilns in the town centre became the main production centre for large-scale porcelain exports to Europe all the way back to the 15th century. With improvements in water transportation and other developments with infrastructure, production of porcelain started to concentrate in Jingdezhen because of the local deposits of kaolinite, one of the main materials used to make porcelain. So the town has a lot of historical and cultural significance in the world of porcelain, and this is why I chose this particular location to manufacture the seeds. Despite its simple appearance, the process for creating sunflower seeds involved around 30 stages and was completed by 1,600 people from the local area, many of whom had years of specialization in certain aspects of the process of making porcelain. Just creating the liquid mud material was an extremely lengthy process involving the mining of 3 to 4 different materials and refining those into powders using very slow traditional water-powered machines called trip hammers. Then hundreds of custom designed molds had to be created for the liquid, which were filled and compressed in order to create the millions of bare white porcelain seeds. These were then left out to dry and then had to be hand sanded to remove what's called the flash, or the excess material left on the seeds from the mold stage. Then of course the seeds are carefully and precisely cooked in the oven using the traditional kilns and practices that have been part of the porcelain making process for hundreds of years. The seeds were then painted with 4 or 5 strokes to create the characteristic black and white stripes of real sunflower seeds. Unfortunately, after the seeds were installed in the Tate Modern in London, small traces of lead were found to be present in the black paint, and it was such a concern that the installation was actually fenced off a few days after opening. Visitors were initially allowed to walk onto the sunflower seeds, pick them up and touch them, but this would actually grind the seeds together and unfortunately cause a small amount of dust to be released into the room. Going back to the process, after the seeds had been painted, they were once again cooked in the large kiln ovens, and then they were washed, rinsed, cleaned, and finally weighed and packaged for transport. The whole process required many steps and many layers of expertise over a long period of time. It's such a monument to traditional craftsmanship and artistry, and something that I personally find so much joy in discussing and observing. The scale of the operation, the immense amount of hours spent on producing the seeds are, for me, what provides so much significance to this piece. When I look at it, I get a bit emotional because I don't see simple painted sunflower seeds. I see thousands of hours of focused physical and mental work, people's lives, people's daily routines. And work is something that we all do. We all spend hundreds and thousands of hours at our workplaces. And so to see so much work manifested in physical form in one place must have been quite an amazing experience to see in person. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, consider dropping a like. It really goes a long way. If you want to check out my own artwork, I'm a professional illustrator by trade. I'm trying to hit 1,000 followers on Instagram before the end of the year, so if you want to help me out and support me there, I'd greatly appreciate it. And subscribe if you want to see more of these behind the scenes type videos, looking at the processes, the techniques, the studios of artists and designers of all kinds. But until then, thanks for watching.